In 1965, James Baldwin participated in a facilitated debate at Cambridge University's Union Hall. His opponent, William F. Buckley, a conservative American political commentator. Subsequently, the segments of Baldwin's debate became widely known as the pin drop speech, partly due to the clarity of the message and partly due to the reception of the audience. To analyze this speech, we must first establish in precedence the debate, the speaker, the zeitgeist, and the intended purpose of the speech. I will attempt to address these key components first so that an understanding of the overall message within the pin drop speech can receive a critical analysis. So first, who is James Baldwin? On August 2nd, 1924, at Harlem Hospital, New York City, Miss Emma Jones gave birth to her first child, a son. A single mother until her son reached about 9 years old, Miss Emma Jones of Maryland eventually married Pastor David Baldwin from New Orleans, Louisiana, who would serve as the stepfather of her son and subsequently inheriting his names. So no longer James Arthur Jones, but now his name is James Baldwin. The union of his parents garnered 9 children in total and became their family's second generation of free African Americans following the Emancipation Proclamation of 1865. Amidst Jim Crow laws and segregation, the streets of Harlem remained an unwelcoming environment for black boys in the 1930s. Engulfed in an atmosphere of poverty, oppression, and discrimination, young James Baldwin was inclined to learn that the birthright he inherited would be accompanied with both tremendous hardship and the harrowing experience of being both black and homosexual. Written in Hilton L's New Yorker segment, a journalist says to Baldwin, "When you were starting out as a writer, you were black, impoverished, and homosexual. You must have said to yourself, gee, how disadvantaged can I get?" Baldwin later replied, "No, I thought I had hit the jackpot. It was so outrageous that you had to find a way to use it all." So, as a result of the tribulations Baldwin endured in his upcoming, the experiences would catalyst the novels, poems, and essays that later accumulated fame and world recognition for the writer. While only a teenager, Baldwin gained a reputation of preaching at church. Later, as a scholar of DeWitt Clinton High School, which was predominantly a white and Jewish academy, James then developed his skills as a writer. He eventually started editing the high school magazine known as Magpie. As a testament to his perseverance, his experiences, and his gift of language, James Baldwin would later become a prominent contemporary American author, writing 17 books of prose, essays, and plays that embodied his role as a civil rights activist. Now, although Baldwin made Paris his primary residence in 1948, his work, influence, and campaign remained dedicated to the American civil rights movement, and his identity as an African American homosexual influenced his role as a prominent black figure in American culture. So, to summarize the effect, the position, and an understanding of James Baldwin, we must establish that he is an award-winning author, he was a prominent civil rights activist, a devout humanitarian, and a gifted orator. Now, who was William F. Buckley? Born in New York City, 1925, Buckley was the son of a New Orleans woman, Eloise Josephine, and a Texas-born lawyer and oil developer, Mr. William Buckley, Sr. William Buckley Jr. was the 6th of 10 siblings and was raised in Mexico, Paris, and Connecticut. Buckley is a veteran of World War II and a graduate of Yale University. In 1955, he founded the magazine entitled National Review, which stimulated the conservative movement within the mid-20th century. Buckley hosted the popular American Affairs television broadcast known as Firing Line, which is still the longest-running public affairs broadcast with a singular host on air, from 1966 all the way to 1999. In his book, Happy Days, where here again, Buckley acknowledges his identity as both a conservative and a libertarian. George H. Nash, a historian of the modern American conservative movement, said in an article reviewing Buckley in 2008, Buckley was arguably the most important intellectual in the United States in the past half-century. For an entire generation, he was the preeminent voice of American conservatism and its first great figure. In the 1950s and 1960s, Buckley notably opposed federal civil rights legislation and supported segregation in the South under the premise that long-term equality could not be achieved with the current condition of present-day Negroes. In August 1957, in his magazine, National Review, William Buckley wrote, "The central question that emerges is whether the white community in the South is entitled to take such measures as are necessary to prevail politically and culturally in areas where it does not predominate numerically." Excuse me. The sobering answer is yes. The white community is so entitled because, for the time being, it is the advanced race. This is what he said. The views and perspectives presented by Buckley establishes his identity as a white supremacist and his following of doctrines supporting American conservatism and some principles of libertarianism. So now, let's address the social political atmosphere, or the zeitgeist. The zeitgeist during the pin drop speech was predicated on the continuing conditions of oppression in which white America subjugated people of color. During these times, America was engulfed in the controversy of segregation and the morality concerning its practices. Since 1880, America engaged in racial segregation perpetuated by Jim Crow laws, which established the legal precedents that outlawed integration between white and colored people. As such, the 1896 case of Plessy versus Ferguson established the separate but equal standard that endured until the late 1960s. In search of political restitutions, a plethora of African-American civil rights leaders emerged and engaged in political and social advocacy for the eradications of systems driven by racism or oppression or segregation. Thus, the political and social atmosphere that existed during the time of the pin drop speech included hostilities towards the sympathies of African Americans. Now, let's address the purpose of the speech. During the time of the debate between Buckley and Baldwin, Buckley was the editor-in-chief of the acclaimed National Review magazine, while Baldwin was a highly praised writer and author with an upcoming book entitled Another Country. Both speakers had established precedents within their corresponding fields, which led to the reputations that preceded them. So basically, Buckley represented the right-wing political ideologies, while Baldwin represented the left-wing and radical political ideologies. Cambridge University hosted the formal debate, which would address the motions concerning the political state of the American Negro and its benefactors. So, ushered in the formalities established by the Cambridge University's debate protocol, the audience of students and scholars would witness the arguments of two political titans, both proposing their persuasive analyses regarding American civil rights. Following the debate, the Cambridge University Debate Union, about 700 members, would then vote on the winner based on their corresponding argumentative metrics. Now let's analyze the arguments. As far as the arguments go, Baldwin sought to lay claim that the American dream is at the expense of the American Negro, while Buckley arguments refuted those claims and the existence of systematic racism. Buckley asserted that the American dream is not available to the American Negro because they lack enthusiasm to work for it. So these were the two topics that they were debating on. Now, my personal analysis. As I have established the foundation for the Buckley and Baldwin debate, I would like to analyze the components of Baldwin's speech along with the subsequent messages that he presented. So as Baldwin supports his ideas and arguments during the 23-minute oration, he utilizes a pathos and logos persuasive style. By delivering stories that narrate the injustices suffered by African Americans, Baldwin seeks to evoke emotional responses from the audience within his statements. Of notable remark, Baldwin states, "I picked the cotton, and I carried it to the market, and I built the railroads under someone else's whip for nothing." Furthermore, through the use of analogies, Baldwin purports an appeal to logic or a logos persuasive element in his speech to evoke an emotional response to the logistics of the statements. So, in reference to logos, Baldwin states, the Southern oligarchy, which is still today so very much powerful in Washington and therefore some power in the world, was created by my labor and by my sweat and the violation of my woman and the murder of my children. Overall, Baldwin eloquently presented his experience and his perspective of American society in a manner convincing of his assertions. His arguments were supported by factual evidence and subsequent testimonials. The speaking style Baldwin utilizes is similar to a cadence of a preacher, and he often presents thought-provoking illustration that supports visualization and the analysis of his premises. Rarely stumbling over a word, Baldwin uses no speaking aids, yet he delivers with his messages with clarity and emits easy listening. One might assume that Baldwin is engaging in a conversation regarding his ability to fluently navigate through his points. So following the Buckley-Baldwin debate, the Cambridge University Debate Union garnered Baldwin a handsome win, having garnered 540 of the 700 votes. Baldwin effectively exercised the argument that the American condition is perceived differently within the American society, and that the difference needs to be faced so that it can be changed. Both Buckley and Baldwin's debate became highlights of their careers and has led to many controversial productions. For example, A Fire is Upon Us is a book authored by Nicholas Buckley that highlights the impact and complicity surrounding the Buckley and Baldwin debate. As recent as 2020, the James Baldwin documentary titled I Am Not Your Negro highlights the Cambridge debate, and it addresses how some of the points made by Baldwin are relevant today. In his closing statement, Baldwin says, "There is scarcely any hope for the American dream because the people who are denied participation in it by their very presence will wreck it." Afterwards, he received a sustained round of applause and a standing ovation, which still quite resonates today. This is my analysis of the pin drop speech. Thank you.